Guten Tag! Hello everyone, John here, and I am currently in Germany for Gamescom. And as soon as those doors opened, I ran. I made a beeline for the Nintendo area. It's only day one, there's still plenty to do, plenty to experience, plenty of people to meet up with, plenty of pretzels to devour. But there were a list of games I wanted to see immediately. And so I did, and I played all of these on Switch too. We're talking Metaphor, we're talking 007 First Light, we're talking Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, we're talking Mega Man, and Nintendo Switch Sports Resort. So all of those, apart from Mega Man, which is a new game, most of those are ports, and Switch Sports is a new game as well. So I thought we'd start with those, because they're mostly known quantities, apart from how they run and look. And while I do have off-screen capture for most of these games, it won't give you the real impression, like, eyes first, you know? So, let me go over how I feel about these. And we'll start with 007, because I think this one is the one we've seen the least. They even delayed the Switch 2 version back to make it better. And after Hitman, which I thought was okay on Switch 2, they had to cap the frame rate at 30 because it was so variable in its unlock state. With 007, they've clearly tailored it more to the Switch 2 than Hitman was. They're using DLSS to a heavy degree, and they've gone through and made some bespoke changes to this version. I think many of the settings are probably lower than the PC's low, but I think generally when you're playing, it still looks like 007. It still looks good and runs well, and is fun. So there were moments where the breakup of DLSS was obvious. In the intro cutscene, there's a part where a flare goes off, and all the sparks that emit from the flare, they all have just a bunch of pixel breakup. And there's a scene where it's raining in the beginning, you're in the sea, you pan the camera around, the rain's splashing in Bond's face. It's not as smooth as, obviously, it would be if there were no reconstruction like DLSS. That being said, though, when you're moving around, I think it's only every now and then you're really going to catch like a muddy rock texture or whatever else. There was one moment where there's a dead person on the floor and Bond's seeing what their name is, and there's like a lanyard with like a name tag on it, and it's hard to make out what that name is. In other versions you would have been able to see, but a submenu comes up anyway, showing you exactly what it is. So while there are definitely cutbacks there, it doesn't really impact anything. And yeah, just in the gist of gameplay, it ran great. I couldn't really notice many or any frame drops just in that intro area. And it does push itself. Like, there's a big open, like, dome area. There wasn't a whole lot of pop-in. I couldn't really notice much animation, chopping in the background. It generally just looked and ran pretty good. Obviously compromised. Definitely not the go-to visual version of the game, but if you want to play this flexibly on Switch 2, it seems like a good time. I only got to play everything I'm talking about in this video docked, by the way, so I don't know how handheld fares. I imagine handheld for 007 would be even blurrier. But if you're after like an Uncharted-like game with like a little bit of Hitman in there, it's great. It's always been great, and this port, seemingly they've done really well by it. I think it was a good idea to delay it and make it just shine. But let's go on to Metaphor, and with Metaphor, I think the compromises are louder, which is a shame for a game that was also on PlayStation 4, and it wasn't a technical marvel on PS4, it had a very erratic frame rate, the image quality wasn't great, but this is another one where when you're playing, it's not that bad. When you're moving around all the time, it's pretty good even. But when things come to a standstill, which they do naturally, when there's conversations where it's like portraits yapping to each other, and you look at the faces of your party members, they do just become a bit of a smear. The art style of like having outlines and just the general like painty look kind of does help, but there's definitely points where the low resolution roots are obvious. There was one point where there was there's a pole in a gate, and you could see the like original resolution in there with how jaggedy it was. I moved the camera and suddenly it was okay, but there's definitely moments where you can tell this is coming from a really low res. So I don't think Atlas is really on a roll with their Switch 2 ports, but that being said, ran great. I couldn't really notice any frame drops, it was perfectly fine. And the game's excellent. The portraits and the menus are in really high quality as well, so they're not compromised. It's just the 3D assets, which look a bit choppy. But Metaphor's a fantastic game, and playing it in a handheld form I feel is ideal for any Atlas game. So while this is maybe a bit disappointing in how it looks, I still think it's worth playing on Switch 2, just because of how flexible, how easy to pick up and play these games are. Again, I didn't play in handheld, which is a crucial part for a handheld RPG. I'd imagine it might have parity because Persona 3 does. That's 1080p in both handheld and dock, so maybe it's no different. I don't know. But if it gets blurrier than this, it'll be hard to recommend a handheld playthrough. But let's go on to the last of the ports, which is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. Some of you may have played this already. The open beta is, I think, like next weekend. And it's an interesting one, because in some ways it's the most compromised, but in other ways it's the least compromised, because it runs excellently. It runs like every other version of Modern Warfare 4. And this is the first year where they've ditched last gen, so no PS4, no Xbox One version. And with the compromises they've made here, it feels understandable why they've done it this time, because it's just about running on Switch 2. It can sometimes give off the look as if it's being streamed, if that makes sense. But there's moments where some parts of what's on the screen isn't quite catching up with the other parts, like maybe your weapon looks lower resolution than everything else. But there's parts where it almost feels like it's buffering in terms of its look. It's quite a blurry game, but only in areas. Some parts of it are totally fine. They've made compromises elsewhere. The textures are a bit more muddy as well. But it's running at 60 FPS. And again, when you're playing, it's not that bad. In fact, I performed. If I may boast for a moment, I performed excellently. I've not played Call of Duty in like 10 plus years, but I had like a 22 kill to 1 death ratio. Maybe my other players hadn't played Call of Duty much ever, but I don't know, it felt pretty good, let me tell you that, fellas. And if you were to play this on PS5, you would have the same experience. Obviously, it'd be cleaner and clearer there, things wouldn't be blurry, but man, this is just Call of Duty. It's just Call of Duty. And we had that parity on Wii U, but it was interesting how they kind of remade them for the Wii. And they're not remaking it here. It's just the same game, squished far down. It'd be interesting to see how Series S handles this one. Because in a lot of Series S versus Switch 2 comparisons, Switch 2 does kind of come out on top when it comes to raw visual look. And yeah, I think this is good. Obviously not ideal. Again, this is docked. I don't know how handheld is. I couldn't go into the menus and put gyro on, which is a shame. I would like to try the mouse mode as well. But yeah, playing with the controller, looked good, felt good. Pretty good. Obviously heavily compromised, but I think it's fine. I think it's good to have a game as big as this on the Switch 2. So we have 2 more left. We've got Switch Sports Resort and Mega Man. So let's stick to Mega Man. And Mega Man Dual Override. I've not been following this game that closely. Obviously, not that much has been shown. ONL had a trailer for the new female Robot Master, first time since Splash Woman. And so a lot of the stuff I'm about to say maybe is public knowledge, I don't know. But I'm just going to say it anyway. So this Mega Man split into multiple acts, almost like a Sonic game, where you pick the Robot Master, and then there's 3 sub-levels within there, like Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, and every zone has its own little boss at the end of it. And the first zone was easy peasy. There was already a Robot Master ability unlocked, which I used to quickly get through. Unfortunately, I can't show gameplay of this one, they wouldn't let me capture it. But I quickly blasted through them in one hit with a Robot Master weakness. The second one, though, was tricky. The second one really gave me a lot of struggle, and I was looking around, everybody was struggling on the second boss, but eventually I got through. Lives were infinite in the demo. I don't know if they are in the game, in the full game. No idea. No trace of lives, though. And one interesting crutch on this one is it's difficult, like how Mega Man usually is, but you have the overdrive ability. So there's 2 different ones on the shoulder buttons. The first one, it can either be like a power or defense move, and you can decide which chip it's going to be when going into a level. And there's multiple chips, but the ones we had to choose between were offensive and defensive. So one of them was like a shield, and the other one was like a power-up blaster that makes all your shots more powerful. So I used the shield for the first act, and then the power-up one for the second act. And then there's also like a finishing move, which activates when you're low on health, or you can activate it whenever you want, and it just slowly recharges back up over the time. And that one's kind of like a last resort move. You can use it whenever you want to, but when your health's low, it's a way to like get back at the Robot Masters or just quickly destroy everything in your path. And you can choose to go in with no chip at all as well. So if you just want the raw, just want to have it raw Mega Man, you can have that if you want to. But, you know, these chips were a nice way to juggle up the action. And then, yeah, the third act is when you face off against the brand new Robot Master as well. So there's a lot more, like, levels in here. And I also really appreciated one thing, is the visual design. It's far stronger than Mega Man 11 was. But I also love how damage is shown. So when you hit any of the enemies, they start to, like, rust and look damaged. You feel the impact of it. So it's not like a random, like, how many hits does this guy take to, you know, blow up. You feel it. You feel the damage with every shot. And Mega Man has it too. So the lower your health goes, the more like physical damage you'll see on Mega Man. So that's really rad. And I'm really looking forward to this one. I think they're making some really smart moves, not compromising the difficulty of Mega Man. It's moving the series forward rather than staying, you know, in like the Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3 era. 11 was doing that too, but this one just feels like it's going further and further. So I had a brilliant time with Mega Man. And then, Switch Sports Resort. And let me tell you, fellas, there were 4 sports on offer. There was archery, there was the jet ski one, I believe, and then bowling and thumb wrestling. And I had to be partnered up with a random person. And they chose bowling. It's like, that one was in Switch Sports 1. What are you doing, random person? So I did bowling and thumb wrestling. And bowling was the exact same as Switch Sports 1. We were just playing against each other. In this demo, there weren't options for different modes, so that there is 100-pin bowling in this one, which wasn't in Switch Sports 1. But yeah, it was just standard 10-pin bowling that we did, and I could not tell you a difference. The backgrounds were a little bit different, a tiny bit. It's the kind of art style where, like, obviously you can tell it's higher resolution, but it doesn't matter that much, so it wasn't strikingly different. It looked very similar to Switch Sports 1. But yeah, with thumb wrestling and bowling, I didn't really get to have a great idea of Woohoo Island. Because while thumb wrestling does have Woohoo Island in the background, you're not really doing much there. But thumb wrestling surprised me. Because, you know, when Koizumi, my man Koizumi, when he showed it off, I thought, well, meh, it seems like the kind of thing, like, maybe you play once and then move on. But, you know what, I got it. I get it now. It's actually good. It's almost like this game's version of Chumbara, right? Because it's like a one-to-one following the motions of your controller. And the rep told me that Switch Sports 2 is using like all the capacity of gyro, so it's going beyond Switch Sports 1. And I believe them. I believe them in thumb wrestling. It was very responsive. So what makes thumb wrestling a little bit interesting is when you hold ZR, your thumb goes down. And if you hold it there, your thumb gets bigger. So there's this risk-reward. Like, do you risk putting your thumb down and being trapped by your opponent? Or do you charge up so you can hold them down? Because if they get you while their thumb is small, you can waggle yourself out. You just shake the controller, and it's pretty easy to waggle out. But if you get them or they get you when their thumb or your thumb is big, it's actually really hard to get out. In some ways, it's impossible. If they're like a really big thumb, you're not getting out of that one. If it's like medium, you can shake really hard. But yeah, I actually quite liked it. We were both, you know, playing mind games with each other, like, when are you going to put it down, when are you going to attack? Because it wasn't always worth attacking, but maybe when it's not worth attacking, that's the time to strike, right? Yeah, a lot of different mind games going on. And you know what? I liked it. I liked it a whole bunch. But we have a lot more of Gamescom to see. I've got to find the Terranigma booth. Heck yeah, Terranigma's back. Plenty more to play as well. But until then, those are the priorities of my Gamescom visit, and I will give you more and more very soon. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, and I will catch you soon. All right? Bye-bye!